got loyalty, got royalty inside my DNA.
Oh, the beautiful sights of those royal blue throwback jerseys. Clearly the reason that your Sacramento Kings get their first win of the season. They are now 1-5 after a thrilling 102-101 victory against the Utah Jazz. Welcome in to the Sacramento Kings podcast presented by Hoopball and the Hoopball Podcast Network. I am Damian Barling. Thank you so much for downloading, streaming, and thank you so much for listening. As always, you know how much we appreciate it. If you're a regular listener of the show, please hit the subscribe button. If you've already done that, please rate and review the show as well, particularly if you're there on Apple Podcast. Hit the 5-star rating. If you got an extra 60 to 90 seconds and you want to drop us a little review, that would be absolutely fantastic as well. So the Kings win. How about that, huh? 102-101. My, overall feeling on this game is it wasn't particularly enjoyable to watch. The last couple of minutes were a whole lot of fun. It felt like the game. I was actually shocked as I was going over the box score just a few moments ago before we got started. I was stunned to see that the Sacramento Kings only went to the foul line 17 times. I felt like the Kings were at the foul line a lot. I actually felt like both teams were at the foul line a lot. If you had asked me to guess the amount of times DeArron Fox was at the foul line, I probably would have said 15 to 16. He was 9 of 12. The team as a whole was 12 of 17. Now, in a normal situation, that would be a concern. That would be something I would think that needs to be addressed by Luke Walton and his coaching staff. But this isn't a normal situation. The Kings have suffered 5 losses in a row. They were able to get their first win tonight, and I guess you just look at it and go, hell, we'll fix that later. But I thought the Kings were there substantially more. The Jazz were there 27 times. They were 20 of 27. But again, overall, I felt like the pace of the game was really slow, and I think that's evident by the final score, the final 102-101 score. And the best way I can summarize it, or at least the best way I can rationalize it in my own head as to why the game felt so slow and so kind of plodding is that I can't count how many times. There's at least 4 or 5 times here just in my notes that I have, Jazz went on a 13-2 run. Kings went on a 10-0 run. Jazz went on a 9-0 run. Kings went on a 13-2 run. It's like it was just a game of runs where points were scored in short periods of time. They were just scored in bursts. And I think that's the only reason, that's the only logical way for me to explain why this game felt so slow to me, because I was just sitting there in the fourth quarter. Once the Sacramento Kings survived the third quarter, as the fourth quarter got here, it was just like, okay, how are they going to close this out? And then it just felt like the game was dragging along until maybe the last 4 minutes. There was a stretch where it looked like the Sacramento Kings were going to completely pull away from this and actually not just have a victory, but have an emphatic victory. That didn't happen either. A couple of the particulars, DeArron Fox, this was his night. This was his game. As a matter of fact, I think it's fair to say DeArron Fox is the reason the Sacramento Kings won the game. Just when it looked like they had completely lost control of one of those 9-0 runs or 10-0 runs or 13-2 runs, DeArron Fox would bring them back to life, so to speak. 25 points for him to go along with 4 assists, 5 rebounds. Do want to point out no double-digit rebounders for the Sacramento Kings tonight. 38 rebounds on the game for the team, which surprisingly was enough to win the rebound battle. I don't think Utah played particularly well during I can't figure that out because I want to be careful and I don't want to take anything away from the Sacramento Kings. Again, I want to celebrate this episode of the podcast as much as possible. I don't want to take anything away from the Kings. I felt like the Jazz were slow or tired or disinterested, or the other possibility is the Sacramento Kings were frustrating the hell out of them, because we did see some things on the defensive end that were a lot different. DeArron Fox was incredibly active, and my only concern about DeArron's game today is the fact that these guys are traveling and they're playing in New York on Sunday. It felt like DeArron was going 100 miles an hour, and if we could get a second stat measurement on him as to like how far he moved in the game, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it was more than any other player in either uniform. He was all over the place, and it felt like Bogdan Bogdanovic was as well, particularly there in the fourth quarter. It looked like Bogdan Bogdanovic was getting his hands on a lot of loose balls. Rashawn Holmes is a difference maker. He didn't have the explosive performance on the offensive end that we have seen a couple of times this year, but he was very noticeable on the defensive end. And on that last play, and I'm watching it right now, when I saw Rashawn Holmes run out at Donovan Mitchell, at the pace in which he's running, I'm all like, oh, crap, he's going to foul him. And then he bumps him. I actually thought they had called a foul. But as I saw Donovan kept going, I was like, oh, they didn't call anything. They let that bump go. At the pace at which Rashawn Holmes was moving, I thought, oh, crap, he's going to hit him. He bumps him. No foul call. Donovan gets up he got up a pretty good look. It just fell short. So again, this wasn't a particularly great game for the Utah Jazz. They fall to 4-2 on the season. It was obviously a winnable game for them. We'll try to go over each individual quarter. Of course, we'll bring you Luke Walton's press conference, as we always do. But it is nice that it's nice to have a positive show here post game on the Hoop Ball Podcast Network. And that energy that the Kings had, they had it early. And that was one of the good things. That was one of the really, really good things about the game today, is that the Kings opened up the game with energy, and they seemed to finish it with energy as well. I never felt like they got slow. I had just said it felt like that Utah was like disinterested or tired. I never felt that way about Sacramento. Not in the first quarter, not in the second, not in the third, not even during runs. It felt like they were. It's just that there were points where shots weren't falling for them. There were points where they were doing, stupid things with the ball. But I never felt like they just weren't there, that they were lazy or that they were losing energy. Their defense looked better. And the fact that Holmes was aggressive, was able to be as aggressive as he was late in the game is commendable, because he picked up 2 quick fouls there in the first quarter. The Kings had a really good, I don't think the Jazz even had a lead until sometime in the third. I know they've got that in my notes here as we roll along, but the Kings, they got out to a strong start, a 9-0 lead. Score was 23 to not a 9-0 lead, excuse me. They got on a 9-0 run, made the score 23-11. 5 quick points from the Utah Jazz and a Luke Walton timeout brought Utah back within 7. And then this is, you just saw a lot of this is where I think the story of the game was really told in the first quarter. Kings had 3 missed threes in a row, followed by back-to-back turnovers, and you're looking like, okay, this is going to be another one of those dreadful finishes to the quarter by the Kings. But Utah wasn't able to capitalize on it. Barnes hit a layup. Utah turned it over. Bogey hit a 3. Kings went up 10. Heading into the second, my only takeaway from that first quarter is, man, the Kings, they capitalized where Utah could not. They took advantage of Utah's mistakes. Sacramento left the door wide open, and the Jazz just refused to walk in. Kings made a ton of mistakes, and Utah just could not capitalize on them. I had mentioned the game felt like it was slow. I think that really materialized itself in the second quarter. Both teams went on lengthy stretches without scoring or scoring very little. Jazz went on a 10-2 run before Harrison Barnes got the Kings going again with a 3. We saw, it was the second quarter where we saw Nemanja Bjelica and Rashawn Holmes connect on a couple of plays at the rim. Kings took a 3-point lead into halftime, and I don't think either team was playing particularly great, but the Kings were working their asses off, and I think that's really important to note, given what we've seen from them at various points through this year. I don't think Quinn Snyder was happy with the way the Jazz were playing, and I'm going to venture a guess that Luke Walton wasn't particularly thrilled with the way that the Kings were playing. But the Kings were working hard, and that was very, very evident. They got their hands on virtually every loose ball, and if they didn't, they were certainly attempting to. Let's go to Luke Walton and see what he had to say about his Kings getting their first win.
When talking about our team and trying to play more consistent, we had the intensity that it takes to win games for much longer. That's the group I've seen in our short time together, as far as the way they practice, the way they compete. So it was really nice to see that carry over for a large part of that game. Individually, I thought Trevor really symbolized what we're preaching here, which is we're a team, and the only thing that matters is how we play and winning together. And he played 32 minutes, took 0 shots, and in my opinion, really impacted that game. Every time someone got hot for Utah, we switched them on to somebody else, and he disrupted their rhythm and did a great job. Harrison not playing most of the fourth, coming in, keeping his head up, supporting his teammates on the bench, coming in, getting a game winner. Dwayne, who, didn't play much last game. Defensively was big tonight, and then knocked down a big three. Bogey struggling with his shot, stayed tough. All those things that we're talking about every day and working on, I was really happy to see play out tonight.
Luke, Katie Hunter, Kings TV. When it boils down to it, you guys look like a much different team. We're seeing a lot of the things that are characteristics that we know this team is capable of. How much of it comes down to just being hungry to get this win?
Part of it is the hunger, but I think part of it is a bigger part of it is the work that they've been putting in, and it hasn't paid off yet. Tonight, I thought it did. That's a very good team over there, and I thought that were we hungry tonight? Yes. Have we been hungry most games to start? Yes, and then it fades out. But that's the intensity now that we have to have for an entire game, and hopefully we feel that, we build on it, we continue to go in the right direction.
So there you heard Luke Walton there talking about his team, talking about, Dwayne Dedmon. He just picked the best opportunity to hit his first 3-pointer of the game there in the fourth quarter. It's worth pointing out before we went to Luke Walton there, that third quarter arrived and you kept waiting for it to happen, and it didn't. In the first couple of minutes, the Jazz were able to take their first lead of the game. There was about 11 minutes left in the quarter. Buddy came right back. Kings took it back, and then we saw the two teams go back and forth, really for the entire quarter. And it kind of got to the point where it was like, okay, all right, it's not going to happen today. Now, the Kings were outscored 32-30. They still haven't won a third quarter, but they also didn't score 15 points or 16 points or 17 points. They weren't outscored by 10 either. So once you kind of got through that third quarter, it was like, okay, what are the Kings going to do now? What are we going to be able to get out of this? And I can't stress this enough. If you missed the game, DeArron Fox was the sole reason that this game what it was, particularly here at the midway point of the third quarter. He had 22. He had been to the foul lines at that point 10 times. Kings went on a 10-0 run. It ended with a Mike Conley layup. And then DeArron missed that emphatic dunk attempt. Barnes chased the ball down all the way on the other side of the floor. He came back. He missed a three. And then Conley responded with a corner three. And after being down by 8, suddenly the Jazz were only down by 3. Again, the Kings were really in control for the bulk of this game. And it's something that they didn't have to play from behind. At least not, they didn't have to play from behind, like by a significant number. They were never down by 7. They were never down by, 8. They were certainly never down by double digits. It was something that they were, the Jazz were always within their sights. Fourth quarter came along. Kings were up by 9. The crowd was loud. It felt like for the first time all season. And I thought the Kings might run away with it. I thought, okay, this is good. Close them out. Just kind of put your foot on their throat. And the Kings get a nice solid win. Jazz are a good basketball team, and I don't think they had played particularly well up until that point, even though they had kept themselves in the game. They had done enough, and if it was the Sacramento Kings defense, they had done enough to break away from it just a little bit, just to be able to stay close, just to keep the Kings within striking distance. And the Jazz, they got within 5, and the Kings, they just kept giving them opportunity after opportunity after opportunity that the Jazz just could not take advantage of until they finally did. In the fourth quarter, they were able to go on a 9-0 run to tie the game. And then Dwayne Dedmon, who I just mentioned a moment ago, picked a great time to hit his first 3 of the game. He was 0 of 5 on the night before hitting a 3-pointer with 60 seconds left. The Kings had a 1-point lead with 17 seconds left. This is the first time that I recall seeing 2 loose ball fouls on made baskets. And we saw that once on the Kings side of the ball, and we saw it here at the end of the game. Kings had a 1-point lead with 17 seconds left. Shot clock was off. Donovan Mitchell got the ball. He was hot. He took the ball to the basket, hit a difficult layup, loose ball foul, and it's on Rudy Gobert. Like, okay, what's going to happen here? Nothing. The Jazz weren't in the penalty, so it was just as if the foul really didn't take place. Donovan Mitchell's basket counts. DeArron Fox pushes the ball up the floor quickly, finds Nemanja Bjelica in the corner. Belly misses. Harrison Barnes gets the follow. Kings take a 102-101 lead with 2.9 seconds left. And as we outlined, Mitchell got a pretty decent look to try to hit the game winner. Rashawn Holmes was all over him, and the Sacramento Kings get their first win of the season. They're on the road now. They're headed out east. I imagine they're going to get on a plane tonight and head to New York. They're going to be taking on the New York Knicks on Sunday afternoon here at 3 o'clock. Of course, we'll have a podcast immediately following that game, and then they're going to take on the Toronto Raptors, the Atlanta Hawks there on that road trip before they come back and take on the Portland Trailblazers for the next home game on November 12th. This is the first time that the Sacramento Kings will have more than one day in between games, I think, since the season started. They're going to have a couple of days off between New York and Toronto, and then they're going to have a couple of days off between the end of the road trip, which is against the Atlanta Hawks, and their next game, which is against the Portland Trailblazers. So whatever Luke Walton has been working on, whatever he has been telling us that the Sacramento Kings need to fix, whatever his biggest frustrations are, they're going to finally have an opportunity to get in the gym and work on it a little bit. And that's just kind of the way the schedule goes. Some other Sacramento news, some other Sacramento Kings news that happened here today is, to no one's surprise, the Kings picked up the options for Marvin Bagley and DeArron Fox. We all believe that those two guys are in line for massive contract extensions when the time is appropriate. Caleb Swanigan, he did not have his option picked up, and neither did Harry Giles. They declined to pick up the final year option on Harry Giles' deal. That seemed to catch a lot of Kings fans by surprise, and I wonder if now we're getting a glimpse into kind of what's been going on this season. We had James Ham on a podcast just before the season starts. As a matter of fact, it was the day of the season opener, and we were talking about Harry Giles. He hadn't played in the preseason. He hadn't really been a part of training camp. Didn't make the trip to India, and that's where James Ham first told us. Harry came in out of shape. It had bothered his knees. I don't know if he's close to playing. I know there's Zapruder film leaking through social media of him going through individual workouts. We've read that he has been out there on the floor during the scrimmage portions of practice, which I imagine that hasn't been happening much since the season began. So I don't really know where Harry Giles is at, and I don't know that he's close to returning. The Kings have invested a lot of time into him, and at this point, I think picking up the final year of his contract, picking up that option year of his contract would have been nothing more than kind of a goodwill gesture. And it appears that the Sacramento Kings are now past that. We all had high hopes for Harry Giles. I can comfortably say that we're all rooting for him. We want the guy to be healthy. We all know his injuries and what they have done to his college career. We know that they have really derailed the start of his professional career. And I hope if it's with the Sacramento Kings or if it's with another franchise, I just hope the dude stays healthy. And he can have a lengthy career, even if he doesn't. It's going to be a difficult pill for him to swallow if that he may never realize the potential that he had in high school, and having coaches and scouts say he's the best high school player that they ever scouted. He's the best high school player that they ever recruited. And if he doesn't, those are pretty lofty levels to live up to. Those are LeBron James levels, and those are Zion Williamson levels, and so far only one of those guys has lived up to the expectations. Those are tough positions to be in. But if he could just have a sustained career in the NBA, I think that would be a massive win for him. And I can comfortably say if he's not a member of the Sacramento Kings, that Kings fans will continue to root for him. But right now, first and foremost, obviously the most important thing is his health. And he hasn't stepped on the floor here now 6 games into the season. And I guess we'll find out here, maybe even tonight, if he's going to be on the road trip headed to the East Coast. That will tell us more about Harry Giles' immediate future. Caleb Swan, again, no big shocker there. It's just kind of one of those things. It is what it is in the lamest sports term imaginable. It was a fun night in the NBA. In addition to the Kings getting their first win of the season, there was a fantastic game on ESPN that went to overtime between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Dallas Mavericks. LeBron James, 39, 12, and 16. Luka Doncic, 31, 13, and 15. Danny Green with a shot at the buzzer to force the game into overtime. The Lakers go to 4-1. Again, I have to eat my words on the Dallas Mavericks. That team has been really good this year, and I think they're going to be able to keep it up like they're. And not only have they been really good, but they're really fun to watch as well. Andre Drummond, 25 points, 24 rebounds tonight as the Pistons fall to the Chicago Bulls. Jason Tatum with the game winner for the Boston Celtics. They win tonight. They go to 4-1. The Boston Celtics go to 4-1. They beat the Knicks tonight, 104-102. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 29, 14, and 6 as the Bucks roll along. Pacers get a much-needed win tonight. Sabonis with 18 and 17. Russell Westbrook had 27, 7, and 8 in a Brooklyn Nets loss, in a Houston Rockets loss to the Brooklyn Nets. And the Warriors continue to fall. San Antonio Spurs beat them. Spurs, by the way, are 4-1. I don't know how much the Spurs have been talked about here this year, but they're 4-1, 5 games into the season, 31 points from Patty Mills, D'Angelo Russell, and you're going to hear this phrase a lot over the course of the next several months as Steph Curry is out for the next 3 weeks. And even got word today that the Warriors are going to monitor Draymond's minutes. So we're headed into load management territory for the Golden State Warriors, who are 1-4. The phrase that you're going to hear a lot over the course of the next couple of months is D'Angelo Russell led the Warriors in scoring, 30 points, 3 rebounds, and 8 assists for D'Lo. But the story for you and the story for Kings fans is the Kings get their first win of the season. This was the DeArron Fox game. The Kings won this. Great play by there were great moments. There were great plays from Nemanja Bjelica. A great finish from Harrison Barnes. You heard Luke Walton a few moments ago praising Trevor Ariza, but this game was 100% about the play of DeArron Fox. It was about his play on the defensive side of the ball. It was about his play on the offensive side of the ball, and it was his willingness to get after every single loose ball, or as Doug Christie calls them, or most analysts call them, those 50-50 balls. He was able to get after all of them, or at least it sure appeared he was going after all of them. So again, the Kings win tonight, 102-101. It's nice to talk about the Kings and not be frustrated. This is a good feeling. I would really like for this to continue. Again, a difficult schedule coming up. I know the Knicks are 1-5 right now, but they're a team. They're very much a team that are getting better. But the good news is, they played tonight too. The game was in Boston. Boston to New York is a significantly shorter trip than Sacramento to New York. But the good news is they were in a fight tonight. The Knicks were in a fight that came down to the buzzer. So they're going to be licking their wounds a little bit tomorrow as well. And both teams will be preparing for that Sunday afternoon game at Madison Square Garden. So we will see you then, of course, immediately following that game on Sunday. We will have a podcast for you here on the Hoop Ball Podcast Network. Thank you, as always, for subscribing. Make sure you, particularly on Apple Podcasts, but any podcast platform that allows you to rate the show, please rate us. That would be great. And, hey, don't go anywhere. Let's hit the pause button on Boys in the Hood and hear what Rashawn Holmes has to say about the Kings' first win.
To do that. So, we definitely needed this one.
Okay, the play that sticks out to me the most that we haven't seen this season is when Gobert was kind of taunting Belly. He stepped in and kind of made your presence felt. What was your thinking behind that, and just seeing a need for that type of a person on this team?
I'm just looking out for my teammates. That's not something I like. You know what I'm saying? I'm not backing down from nobody, especially when it comes down to my teammates. So just want to look out for my teammates, protect my teammates, and that's what I tried to do.
It seemed like you guys had a sense of urgency from the opening tip. Did you feel that tonight?
Definitely. Like I said, we wanted this one. We were hungry for this one. And we had to come out and perform against a very, very good Utah team. And I'm just happy we were able to get out here with the win.
What was your impression of Fox going at them? Especially?
It was great. That's how we need him to be. He was aggressive all game, put a lot of pressure on the defense, and made plays for us. And, he's a great player. That's what we're going to need from him.
How different is it for you, kind of, when you're coming off the bench, you have an ability to kind of judge the game and the officiating, picking up quick fouls. How did that kind of change how you had to manage things the rest of the way?
I think, it's an adjustment for everybody. It's a lot of things that the league stressed this year. And, it's just an adjustment period. I'm just trying to adjust to how they call the game. And, I figured it out.
How nice was it to see Dwayne hit that big three late in the game?
It was great. You had to dial it up, called it on the bench. I knew it was coming. He struggling a little bit shooting the ball, but he was everywhere on defense, everywhere, being a good teammate. And just knew he was due for one. So glad it went down when it did.
I'm confident in saying that dude right there, Rashawn Holmes, is everybody's favorite player. There is not one aspect about this dude to not love. He is awesome. I am a fan for sure. Again, thank you so much for tuning in here to the podcast. As I was saying before we went to Rashawn Holmes, please rate and review the show, particularly on Apple Podcasts. But if you're on Google Play or Spotify, anything that allows you to leave star ratings, we greatly appreciate it. Share it with all your friends. Appreciate all the support here so far in this young season. Kings get the win, 102-101, and move to 1-5. You can't start a win streak without winning the first game. We'll see what happens in New York. We will see you Sunday evening immediately following the Knicks and the Sacramento Kings.